Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the June 21st City Council work session for the City of Bel Air Beach. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilmember Robin Aki.
Here.
Councilmember Frank Banker.
Present.
Councilmember Glenn Gunn.
Here.
Councilmember Leslie Notero.
Here.
Councilmember Rita Swope.
Here.
Vice Mayor Dave Gaddis.
Here.
Mayor Joseph Manzo.
Here.
City Manager Lynn Reeves.
Here.
City Attorney Fred Riley.
Here.
Great, thank you. Let everyone know, we have a code of conduct. We run these meetings via Robert's Rules of Order. That's the rules of the game. That's the way we're playing it tonight. We had some problems last time, and I'm hoping we're not going to have that again. I intend to follow the rules tonight. Item 1, discuss community center marquee sign replacement. Sign replacement is the topic. City Manager brought it, Mr. Reeves.
Mayor and Council, as all of you know, we've been talking about the city sign for months and months and months. The insurance, as I mentioned at the last meeting, said that we either needed to move forward or he was going to pay us an appreciated amount, which is about $4,000. We would get some replacement value of somewhere in the $10,000 to $12,000 range from the insurance. I've asked Mike Vogel, he's here. We went back, he was the low bidder last time. We went back and got a revised quote from him with some modifications, but I asked him to come and have a little discussion with the council, and if you've got questions, he can kind of go over what he came back with, and maybe we can get some direction on this, hopefully. So, Mike, if you, actually, why don't you just come here? I'll slide out of the way, because I'm going to be behind you eventually. So, you
Yes. Well, thank you for having me here, all council members, Mr. Reeves, Mayor. What I'm going to do is just pick any questions, I guess, at this point. I think you probably are familiar with the signage. I think you've got some in front of you about what we've designed for the community. So if you have any questions, let's start there, and I can answer anything you might have.
How much?
The proposal, as it stands right now, is $39,775 plus tax.
Is that for the digital? We went all over here. We had digital, then we had, it was less expensive to do non-digital, which was like, or I'm sorry, it was more expensive to do non-digital, so it's like, well, then let's do digital. Then no, it's more expensive to do digital. What are we building at this
Yeah,
point?
right. The price includes the digital display. That's a 9mm display. And let me explain a little bit about the 9mm. LEDs used to be 16, 30 millimeters. The millimeters is the distance between LEDs. So the tighter the LEDs, in this case 9, the more tighter the resolution. So they can go anywhere from 3 now all the way up to, we pretty much keep around 15 for readability. What you have here is a color unit, and it's about 9mm. So you get good readability, a good output, and at the size that we included here, you get enough lines that can be altered. You can go from 6-inch line and go, you can vary the lines depending on your copy and image you want to pursue. So it's a very good unit as far as millimeters. That can always be changed if you like. This is a color unit. That can always be changed if you like. You can go to a monochrome unit, which is a little bit less expensive. But really, the market kind of leans toward the color, but that's up to you.
What's the impact resistance on the,
Frank, excuse me, you have to put that mic by you because it's not even going to get on the record the way you're doing
What's the impact resistance on the sign? Because most of these digital signs don't have much of an impact.
Define impact.
Storm comes up 35 miles an hour and blows it.
This unit, yeah, this is designed for 150 mile an hour winds, which is by code. Everything is engineered, stamped by the state of Florida. So the unit itself is engineered at 150 miles an hour. The unit, the sign itself, the structure, is stamped, engineered by the state of Florida. So all your concerns as far as hurricane winds and whatnot should be alleviated because it's structurally sound in the state of Florida.
What is the maintenance requirements on these signs? Is there much maintenance to them? Does it have a warranty of any kind?
Because this is all LED, it used to be that we used to use neon, we used to use fluorescent lights. Those were more, less efficient as far as energy. LEDs have approximately 100,000 hours of illumination, so you shouldn't have any really downtime. And even, I believe, the community center, which is illuminated, that's illuminated with LEDs as well. So everything here is LED illuminated, including your logo. It's run off of a 12-volt power supply, so your minimal output of energy is reduced significantly because we're only using LEDs and 120-volt, very low voltage. So as far as that goes, low voltage, low energy consumption, you shouldn't have much as far as maintenance. If the unit, you do have a warranty on the unit, so if anything happens to the electronic unit or, in fact, the whole sign itself, we get a 1-year manufacturer from us on the unit of the sign itself, and then the LED unit is warranted for 5 years, parts and labor.
I have a question. It's showing the overall height is 9 feet. That's pretty darn big compared to what we used to have.
We used to have, I can tell you, offhand, I can tell you what it was. You were 8 foot 4 inches. You were 8 foot 4 inches overall on your previous sign.
Okay. all right.
So this is a little bit taller, not much.
Okay, all
But
right.
mainly the height is due to that feature that we have on top, that wave feature.
So I'm curious, is this sign scalable at all, or is this it?
You can reduce the size as much as you want. But remember, if you reduce the size, you reduce the copy, you reduce the LED board. So as you reduce, the legibility coming over the bridge or any direction is reduced as well.
Okay.
Excuse me. When you ask about wind resistant, is it also salt/rust resistant?
Everything's made out of aluminum, and it's painted with hydroacrylic automotive paint, clear coating, so you shouldn't have a problem. As a matter of fact, I don't know if you shared this with them, but I just did a similar unit, not quite as extravagant, but a similar unit in Redington Shores. And Michael Robinson, I don't know if you know Michael Robinson, Mayor, he's the commissioner there, and we've had that thing up for probably a year or so. So I would welcome any of you to call Mr. Robinson, see how he likes the unit. It's right on Gulf Boulevard, very similar to this one.
And what's the price difference between, this is for color, the monochromic, and then the non-digital?
Okay, let's see. Between this and a monochromatic, I don't know offhand. I would say probably, I'm guessing around $5,000, but if you want to pursue that, I can certainly do a proposal and get that back to you. The ones where you actually used to have, when you put the little units up front, you were talking about it being a little bit more expensive. It is a little more expensive only because we have to manufacture 2 separate cabinets as opposed to this unit which just slides in. So there's a little bit more labor involved, and then you've got the changeable letters where somebody has to physically go out and put your messages out. This one you can run on a scheduled unit. So for instance, you can run this a year on your calendar. So whatever day you want to put your message, you can put it in, it'll automatically that day change it. So really it's pretty easy to just let it run and go. So you can change it at any time. The other good feature by Helco, I think it's every Tuesday, you can get on their, you can get on their call, and they will answer any of your questions, they will help you with any scheduling, anything you want. They're willing and able to answer any questions and help you. And that's, I think it's every Tuesday of the month.
What are you looking at as far as time-wise, lead time?
Lead time, the lead time basically is 2 things. Number one, permitting. Manufacturing the sign doesn't take long, it's within 4 weeks. What will take the longest is to get the LED board in. They have to ship it in. So I'm going to say within 8 weeks.
Okay, is there any issues right now that your company is having with materials, aluminum or any of the materials?
Other than the cost of going. Other than that, no, we're pretty good. Our suppliers have kept us in supplies. What we've done, we have a storage warehouse in back, and we had a little foresight, so we pre-ordered a lot of the stock, a lot of the aluminum, a lot of the plywood, so to kind of get hedge against some of the high prices.
Looking at here on the base, it all is to be determined, is that price included, or is that still items to be purchased?
I think what we were talking about, the stone, we've got stone, that kind of matches, whatever. That's to be determined if you want to go a different route. You know, if you want to go painted, like the cabinet, that could be something that you alter. So that's kind of where we're at on that.
I'm looking at the support, it says that's to be determined by a state certified engineer.
That's correct.
Do we know that already, or do we know?
Is this at not on the engineering yet?
So, are you saying the price includes what
Yes.
the engineer comes up with?
Correct. Yeah. And I'll be honest with you, this is going to be very close to what he comes up with. We've been in business 45 years, so.
What's the communication method between inside and this?
It's an RF, so in other words, we have a unit on the sign that communicates to a unit that will put on the building, and then goes to a computer, a PC, whatever, how you want to do it. And then you just do it on, it's wireless essentially, so, yeah.
And that can be accessed from outside as well, not just the building.
Yeah, it goes right to your computer. Yeah.
But I mean, if you have access to the computer system here from home,
You can set it up that way. If you have an IP number, you can set up an IP number, and anybody at home, if they have the IP number, can change it.
and what was the final bid price, I'm sorry?
It was 39,775 plus tax.
Now, the display itself, can that be either a banner display or a steady, constant display?
Typically, in the state of Florida, they don't encourage, or actually, they're not encouraging, you can't rotate, you can't move the electronics because it distracts from traffic. So what happens, you should put up let's say this one says, see website for new hurricane facility. So let's say you want to run that for 10 seconds, and then it goes to a new one, and then it goes to a new one. However long you want to run that, you can run it all day, but that's how we change it, just statically, no movement.
Okay, and the last question I have then is the illumination, the brightness can be changed.
It automatically changes 256 different degrees of brightness. So it automatically changes with the sun. So if it's an overcast day, it will recognize that and change accordingly. You do have a chance to override it. So if you say, it's just too bright, you can override that to whatever brightness you want.
Okay, so I mean, if neighbors complain about
Correct.
something, we can give it
Absolutely.
anytime, and even set.
And that, I think I would, to start with, I would keep it on automatic to see how that goes. Because it really works pretty well. So, and you want to give it the maximum visibility, so you don't want it too dim. Same point, I understand you don't want it too bright either, so.
Okay, and with the useful life of 100,000 hours, you're talking about 10 to 12 years useful life?
That's right. So typically, illumination for electronics is measured in nits. And this company goes at about 14,000 nits. And over a period of about 5 or 6 years, that LEDs, all LEDs do it, they decrease in brightness. But by the time, after 10 years, it might be, 7,000, 8,000, 9,000 nits. So it's still very viable. It just, as LEDs do, they degrade over years. A lot of companies will start at 10,000 nits. So after a period of time, they're well under the 7,000 nits, which is the kind of the gold zone for readability. So you can see where IOGO tends to push it up a notch, so that when it does come down, it's still over the 7,000 nits that's typical for readability.
So as the display itself starts to wear out, if the sign itself is in good condition, we can just pull out the digital display.
Right. Right. And what we do, not simply pull out the display, these are panels. Each panel, these are in like 12 by 12 panels. So let's say it starts after 10 years, you want to, you can just replace the panels. However, I would say, because of electronics, it's probably going to be cheaper in 10 years to just replace it, as opposed to what it is today. So, and the technology will be better as well. So,
And prices will probably be decreasing over that
it
time.
will probably decrease apples to apples, but probably in 10 years, it'll be smaller millimeters for the same price.
So just as a rough order of magnitude, what would it cost to just change that portion of the sign?
I have no idea. I would have to check. I'll get back to you. That's important.
Council, any other comments? Council, if you want to open this up for citizen comments, it's an option on a work session, it's not required. Anybody object? No objections. City citizens, anyone like have any questions for Michael here or for the council? I see no hands. Back to council if there's any last words, and then we'll thank you, and then we'll debate this a little bit ourselves here.
I just want to say, if whatever you decide to do, if you want to change this, I'm always open to changing whatever you want. If you want to take certain items off, whatever you want to do, to see if you get the price down, we can do that. So just, you know that I'm here and we'll work with you guys, so.
Thank you for coming in and speaking with us and answering our
Thanks for
questions. Mr. Reed, you want to come back? If we want to or not, I have to. So we can't vote tonight on this, as you know. The most we can do tonight is just discuss this. There's been, I will say, a lot of citizen input in here. Some of those citizens I know are not here to voice that input now, but I doubt that their opinion has probably changed. There's been a lot of people against this for various reasons, not in keeping with our character. It's a beautiful sign, by the way, beautiful sign. I mean, but whether it fits with us and whether we need it and whether we should spend $40,000 at this venture, that is the question for the council to determine. And also I want to hear from our citizens. So with that, I'll just throw it open to comments.
Lynn, how confident are you that you can get the 12 being out of the insurance company? Because if you can get hit, it's going to roughly cost us around $28,000, give or take a few extra dollars here and there.
Well, that was what the insurance adjuster told me he would give me originally.
Okay,
So
so basically, we're looking at roughly 28 grand as a cost to the city of Myrtle Beach.
The time is kind of the essence. We gotta make a decision on this thing, otherwise we're gonna.
Well, the adjuster sent me an email, as I told you at the last council meeting, that he was going to close it and give us the depreciated amount, which is about $4,000, and I asked him to hold it. And he has not responded that he's going to close it, so I said I wanted to talk to the council one more time and see where the council was at.
When's he going to close it?
Well, after this discussion tonight, I'll have some more discussion with him.
He didn't give you a date.
No, he told me 30 days when he said that, and that was just before the council meeting. But I sent him immediately back and said, hey, wait a minute.
I'm sure a letter from Mr. Riley, if necessary, can get us a couple extra time. We have to get this to the next council meeting.
Yeah,
This is not
yeah.
decided tonight, so.
I'm fully aware of that. But, I asked Mike to come to kind of clarify some questions and, get feedback from the council, and that's really what I was asking for.
So do you want to agree that we're going to get a yes or no vote at the next council meeting? I mean, we have been debating this for quite some time. If you're going to do this, I want this publicized, not buried on page 100 of the minute of the agenda. Put it as item number 1, well, not one, but number 3, 4, whatever it is. Put it up front, let the citizens know, and then everyone can come and speak. If they can't speak, they can write in whatever they have to do so that the council gets the full range of opinions, and then we all can make our decision.
Yeah, I think most of the comments were light splash. That's what I heard from a lot of them. And I did talk to Mike about that, and the light splash is minimalistic in the scheme of things. It's no different than a street light, but we're a long ways from really anybody's house, several hundred feet, in some cases several hundred yards. So I don't think the light splash, and he may be able to give you some more feedback on that.
Mike, did you want to
I
speak
would
first?
suggest, like I mentioned before, Bennington Shores as a unit light on Elk Boulevard. I would suggest taking a trip during the day, maybe at night, to see, get a feel for brightness. And I'm sure he has it on audit. But he had, one of the ex-council members was living next door in one of the condos, and his biggest objection was the brightness. Apparently not so much anymore because it's super loud. So I would strongly suggest that you call Michael, making a trip down there in the future, just driving that area. The benefits of just information for hurricanes and council meetings is certainly a big impact.
I do have one more question about the brightness. You said that you could override the automatic light adjustment. Does that adjust the range of the, can you adjust the automatic portion of it? Or is it all automatic, we have no control, or it's a manual?
You can set it however you want. The automatic adjusts with the atmosphere, with the light conditions. You can go in and say, hey, at 5 o'clock, I want it to be X brightness, and it will do it that way. So you have a range of options for the brightness. I think you'll find that it's probably not that big a deal. I don't want to minimize that. But again, I would encourage you to go to a place where it has it, because I think you'll find, especially the only neighbors over here, you've got a row of trees. I really don't see an issue with that. I really don't. But again, I would encourage all of you to take that ride and see for yourself. And maybe even talk to Mr. Robinson.
Mike, that one that's in Reddington Shores, that's pretty much similar to this?
Very similar.
Okay.
Even in size. Actually, that was a little bit, I think his is a little bit bigger than this. As a matter of fact, that's it.
I've seen their sign, yeah.
That's okay.
I've got a couple more comments.
Yeah.
You know, I think I've surveyed a couple of places that have put in some digital signs, and initially the feedback is pushback, but once they go in, people are very receptive to it because they like the information that's being passed on. The other thing is this light splash issue. We've heard from a few very vocal people, but you know, we had a communications committee, actually comprised of some of the members of the council and some of the members in the audience here, and their recommendation was to go forward with a digital sign. I think we very adequately answered some of the concerns of the vocal residents, because we can't turn this thing down. It's not going to be the fireworks this way that some people are concerned with. And also, along with the water quality studies that the city manager's done, he's also done some light surveys out there on the street. And the light splash from this sign is going to be minimal compared to just the street lights and the lights from this building. So I think we've done a good job of answering all the concerns of the residents, and I think we should move forward with the recommendations of the Communications Committee and our communications strategic focus within the council.
My only comment is, this is my first bite at this. I can't see why we'd spend, this is gonna cost us $42,000 at the end of the day.
Once we get the insurance.
Well, all right, total price of 42, I just knocked it down to 28. A lot of money. Have we sought out, I think the old sign was perfectly fine. Indian Rocks Beach still has slide the letters in, slide the numbers in. We reached out to trade schools to see if they would do it for a donation, building trades or whatever, using the insurance money. If I lived across the street, I wouldn't want that. I wouldn't want to be looking at that when I looked out the window at 10 o'clock at night.
Your comment is not one or two residents, it's a lot of residents. They tried this stunt a few years ago on the corner. The room was filled with people. It was prior to our council. Citizens, you know, you can't have it both ways. We love the character of Bel Air Beach, and we don't want change, and we don't want business. Oh, I put a digital sign, make it look like a casino. Again, no offense to your sign. I've seen them. I've seen Reddington Shores. I've seen Largo's. The other thing is the hypocrisy. We don't have the money to fix we turned out a $200,000 parks grant last year because it was going to be $50,000 a year out of our pockets here. So don't fix your thing, go your parks, but put a $50,000 sign that not one person, and I get the complaints, not one person has said, hey Mayor, what happened to the sign? I rely on that. You know, the communications committee, first off, doesn't tell us what to do, they suggest. So they work for us, not the other way around. I appreciate their hard work, but they also said use the technology that's out there. We've got these things, everybody carries them, okay? Use it, text people.
Well, that's
And use the other stuff. You don't need a $50,000 sign, and this is where, and then I heard the most ridiculously, somebody gets their emergency information here. You know, in an emergency, it's survival of the fittest, and if you're getting your information off of a digital sign in front of City Hall, you may not make it, okay? There's way better ways of getting your information. Try like the National Weather Service and people like that, so emergency management for Pinellas. So I'm not in favor of this sign. At this point, I don't know that I'm in favor of any sign. And we had a thing where there were think for $2,000 or $3,000 portable signs, digital portable signs that could be put up temporarily. For the amount we're talking here, we could put them on almost every corner in the city if it was that important. Those are also computer generated. They're not fancy. Again, this is a beautiful sign, really pretty.
I'm not knocking the
But,
sign.
yeah, and it has nothing to do with it. It's just, do we need this? And I don't think we do.
I was in that room when there was pushback against the signs, and we're talking apples to oranges, because we were talking about a sign further up on the corner, and it was also in conjunction with county signs across Gulf Boulevard within the city boundaries. That's where the majority of the pushback was. So far as the communications committee goes, it was comprised 99% by residents. And their recommendation was to go with the digital sign.
As far as the cost goes, if I'm reading the budget correctly, in our capital improvements project, we have $30,000 in the budget and for prior years for a new digital sign. So this is not, maybe not as much of a financial hit as we might think. We have that money put away in the capital improvements project.
I might also add that we can look at different ways to reduce the cost. If the cost is the issue, I mean, this is a beautiful sign, I agree. But we can do things here that would bring costs down a little bit, such as going to monochromatic instead of a full color. We can take some of the elements off if you need to. We can do some things here that can get costs down. Whether it's going to be done where you like it or where you want it, I don't know, but we can try and reduce some of the costs, make it more manageable for you, if that's something you want to look at.
Michael, I mean, we can sit here and, take the little cover off, and I don't want to drive you crazy, and I think you've already come back to us with a couple of these already. You're welcome to bring whatever you'd like to the next council meeting and show it to us, but I do think at this point that, what I'm hearing, the insurance companies kind of get antsy here. We need to call an up-down vote on this thing. And I don't care which one it really is that we vote on. Everybody loved this little feature on the top, but if we took it off, we save a few thousand, and go monochrome, we save a few thousand more. So maybe if price is a concern for people, maybe if you want to give a bare bones one, that's fine. I'm not going to ask you to do any more work than you've already done. I know you've really done a considerable amount of effort so far. But it's up to this council if that's what if they want that. If there's no interest, then let's not put them through an exercise here. So.
Now, it looks to me like this is the design this was the final design of everything that we've looked at. Over the various designs, we discussed a V-shape, we discussed several variations on this, and I think everybody actually did like this. I say we put it to a vote at the next council meeting and put this to bed.
We have consensus. I've said it, Dave said it, Glenn's nodding his head yes, Rob Markey.
Well, I guess, everybody loves the sign, but I would be opposed to reducing the price and some features, like I don't think we need color, because that was one big thing, they didn't want a big casino sign, so I think monochromatic is fine. So that brings it down to 34. So I would be in favor of a sign if it was cheaper. Because I think having a sign, because I've had residents be like, well, where's our sign? Like, what's happening? And I keep telling them we're in debate and it's either coming or not. So the price is my big thing. That's,
I'd be more than glad to comment that as well.
Great, so
I don't know, can we think, is there a number that would be based on our budget and based on insurance that would be more comfortable for us? Have we looked at it that way?
what's the real insurance number you think you're going to get? Forget about his bluff with 4,000. What are we really going to get?
Well, originally he told me between 10 and 12 if we replaced it. That's what he told me originally, and because there is, in our insurance, there's a replacement cost component. And the base of that sign was like $8,000, but you're going to get some escalation because of replacement costs. So what they do is they take what it would cost to replace, and we even got a number for that, to replace the sign as it existed, and it was, I want to say $12,000 or $13,000 as it existed. So somehow, however, I'm not privy to how the insurance people work, but that's that's what he told me verbally.
So figure 11, 12, 10 to 12, let's say that.
Yeah.
Settling 11.
And we have been putting money aside each year for the sign with the caveat, because we knew at some point we were gonna have to replace it. So we had put, and this would, the budget that we're gonna talk about tonight would have been the 4th year of that, and, you know, we weren't looking at the insurance happening. So we were planning on about $40,000.
Now, we don't necessarily have to use all 40.
No,
For
you know,
maintenance, that's what I'm
projects.
saying, so just because we have 40 doesn't mean go ahead with this, if we can get it down.
no, I'm not saying that you use it, I'm
Right.
saying we've been saving
Right.
for the sign
So
for several
we have
years.
the money if we decided to, it's whether or not we should.
Right.
It's not restricted fund, we can move to any other capital project. Okay, so at this point, do we have consensus that we're going to do two things? Number one, Mike, you're certainly invited back if you wish to. You just heard from one council member, you know, we've had a lot of 4-3 votes of late, so, you know, this may pass or fail by one vote. So she's asked if you could have a lower number. I don't think it's a bad idea. So if you want to do that, come up with something, you know, an alternative for us, present it, and we're going to get a yes or no vote, one way or the other, at the next council meeting. Mr. Reeves, you're not going to bury it, you're going to put it up towards the top of the agenda, preferably the first action item that we have to do. Okay? Everybody in favor of that?
Yes.
Yes? Okay, everyone's in favor, no one's opposed, right? That's what we're going to do then. Okay? Thank you again for coming in, we'll see you next, I think it's July 7th, is it? 6th, okay.
Thank you very much.
Thanks again for your work on this. All right, so now we begin the big budget workshop to review fiscal year 2021-2022 budget. Everyone has hopefully the budget that Mr. Reeves gave us last time, and I will turn it over to you, Lynn Reeves.
Okay, I'm gonna be back here because it's on the screen there, and I'm not gonna go through every single page. I'm just gonna go through highlights of it. I did give you an updated to the overall estimated expenditures and changes. Heather and I went through it again, and so there's an update that I put at your seat tonight. I also put there what the rollback rate type budget would be. And then we'll discuss things that would have to come out of the budget if we determine to go to the rollback rate. So, we'll start with the organizational chart. What I'm proposing is to bring the code enforcement back in-house, and staff will do it, and we'll hire a part-time office assistant. That will be no additional cost to the budget. It's a wash situation. And then we would have code enforcement at least a half day every day of the week, where now we really don't have that. That's one of my recommendations. Another one is to, because at some point in time I'm going to transition to retirement, and I think what I'm recommending is we modify Kyle's position in making the assistant city manager, so you have a transition person at the time that I decide to retire. And he has been doing a lot of things. As an example, this year he did the paving and curb work project. I gave that to him. He did the beach accesses project. Did several things, and I'm training him in. The community rating system, this was our verification visit. I had him working with me side by side to get that visit done. Of course, it isn't completely completed yet, but we've had the exercise with the FEMA people already, so now it's in their ball court to come back to us and tell us where we landed. So that's my two personnel recommendations. As far as the code enforcement, a lot of things get missed. Danny's only here a few hours a week, and if we put him in more hours a week, it would cost us significantly more. We've had complaints that, as an example, I'll just use grass for an example. Driving down the street, one side of the street, there's high grass, and on the other side, there's high grass, but he only sees the one on one side. Some of the other things, we've had 21 cases of code enforcement. Only 2 of them have been brought by the sheriff's deputy in that time frame that we've had different code violations that we've moved forward. So, you know, my position is he struggles with the building construction because he doesn't have any background in it. I mean, the bottom line, he's a deputy and he's limited. You know, if you want a deputy sheriff, then I guess that's what you want. But I think it's more conducive to the residents that do call in, and you know they want immediate action. And a lot of times, what that entails, myself or Laura or someone else has to go do it, even though he's here 8 to 12 hours a week. So that's that. I think it would give us a part-time office assistant in the afternoon is what I'm proposing, and that would free Laura up to go out into the city during that time frame. And as I said, there's no cost change at all. It's a wash between using him as he currently is used and using our own code enforcement in-house. And I do think we'd get better service. Okay.
Lynn, before we start getting too deep into this, how do you want to handle questions? Because we got
What I want to
half an
do
inch
is
of paper here. Do you want them now as we're going along, or you want
no.
us to
What I'd like to do is I'll go through the budget and just kind of do the highlights. I'm not going to go through every department. I can highlight it and then come back for questions.
Okay.
Okay?
Yep.
I will tell you that the Citizens Advisory Committee reviewed, and they had a few comments. They reviewed the budget a week ago. And a couple of comments that they made, they wanted to look at what the rollback rate would do to us. And I prepared that for you to be able to talk about that. But for the most part, you know, we talked about the sheriff's contract and things of that nature, which I'll highlight about that. But for the most part, I think and there are a few members in the audience, for the most part, I think they were, and I asked them to come tonight, I think they were happy with what they saw for the most part, unless I'm hearing something different. So, going forward, if you'll, this is the budget schedule, some of the highlighted things we've got to do. As you know, the property value went up 6.03%, which it translates into about a $69,000 increase in the millage dollars, which is about $57 a property in the city, which if you take that down, it's about 13 or 14 cents a day. As far as an increase, and it's based on value. So the critical dates that we have, June 19th, we'll have our second workshop. After you give me feedback tonight, we'll do some adjustments as needed, and then immediately following that, we'll...
Excuse me, you meant July 19th, right?
Yeah, July, did I say June?
Yeah.
Sorry. July 19th, we'll set the tentative millage rate, and I'll tell you right now, at this time, I'm going to propose the 2.03 as the tentative millage rate. That is not the final millage rate at that time, but you don't want to go lower than that, because at that time, you can't go back up if you lower it lower than that. So remember, that's just the tentative. Okay, and then we'll have our first public hearing on September 20th. September 8th, excuse me, and of the proposed millage rate. And at that time, the council can accept the proposed millage rate or do something else, or do something in between the rollback and whatever, number they choose to do. And then the final budget hearing will be on September 20th. July 1st, the county will validate what they've already given us, that 6.03%. There'll be an update, and we'll have to fill out the forms for the state, put in our budget hearing night dates, and that starts really the process. Just, we have to do the same thing with the non valorem assessments for Bellevue Estates Island. I have to turn that assessment roll in by July 1st. It's already been turned in. I've updated it, and so that's going forward. Okay, the page, just a budget summary. Our budget is proposed at $2,611,437. That's about $120,000 lower than the previous year. Our ad valorem tax collection is proposed at $1,233,565. And as I said, that could change July 1st. It could go up, could go down. Generally, it's very close to that. These are just the highlights of what the income is, and then the operating expenditures include things like personnel, operating capital projects, and then our debt service, which is, when we talk about debt service, it's the money that we're paying on the bond, which that debt service is paid by the residents of BEI, and then the money we're paying for this building, which we pay quarterly. Okay, as I said, the millage rate projection right now is currently at 6.03%. The dollar change in that amount from the prior year was $35,837,390. And we're going to skip to this slide, and that's what I gave you updated on. It'll say proposed budget. I think it says 621, and then the rollback rate. What's on the screen up there? We found an error in it, and we updated it. So I'm just kind of clarifying that, and that's why I put the copy out there for you. After this meeting, you give me your projections, and then we will update it according to the council's desire, and then we will prepare an updated budget and give that to you. As I told you, the $1,233,565 is leaving the millage rate as it is, no rollback or anything like that. As you'll go down, there are a couple things that I want to highlight. Last year, we were concerned with the pandemic, and when we were doing the budget, we saw some of the revenues drop. Now, it appears that we weren't hurt as bad as we thought we were going to be hurt, and so we're bringing our projections up to somewhere at or a little below the prior year. As an example, the utility services tax, we're estimating $273,800, which is a $31,000 increase. Communication service tax at $50,000. Business registration and property, rental registration. If you look at the 19 and 20, we were collecting $24,000. This year, we're right at $60,000, and we're pretty much done collecting for this year. And as you know, we'll have the second hearing on the budget. That collection will change from January 1st to December 31st, as far as the calendar year for the rental registration. State revenue sharing, half-cent sales tax, those are all numbers that come from the state. Last year, we had a $50,000 grant from Pinellas County. Of course, we don't have that this year. We've already completed the project. We should have the recycling. I don't anticipate, unless we have a hurricane, any FEMA reimbursements. Charges for services. Garbage collection, $303,000. Lot mowing is mainly something that we would abate a lot for, where somebody didn't cut the grass. Lien claims, parking permits, and then the parking meter fees. For some reason, they've drastically increased over the last couple of years. Usually they collected about 75 or 80,000. After the pandemic, it's like nobody ever has been to the beach before. So that's that. We've looked at the number through today, actually, and so we're estimating we're going to bring in about 135,000 in revenue this year, which is a good thing. It helps with our expenses. Fines and forfeitures, that's mainly the parking tickets, and that should stay static. It has dropped since we don't write parking tickets, in other areas other than within our city. Code violation fees, that's if we have a code violation. So you can't really say I'm going to charge somebody $10,000 worth of code fees when you're not going to do it. If you go to the next page, our rentals, or our interest in investments has dropped dramatically. And until they start raising the interest rates and a few things, I don't see us gaining a lot on that. But the rental is starting to come back, and I think we're going to be good next year, or during this year, the rest of this year and into next year. I think the rental will improve. Then we go into just miscellaneous revenue, and things of that are, we do assessment searches when a house sells. We get $25 for that, so over time we will collect in some years a little more or less, but it pretty much remains static. Site plan review, that's really a pass-through to the engineer that does our site plans. Currently, we've got 6 houses under construction in the city, so there are a few other lots that I know are going to be tear downs, or that I've been told. With this budget, we'll end up using about $100,000 of our reserve fund. Right now, our estimated reserve after the hurricane, the 20% that we have to by state, is about a little over $2 million, which I think we've been doing good in keeping that reserve at an elevated level, even with the stormwater projects. And then you'll go down to the expenditures for each department. For the most part, they're pretty static. And if you look in the background information, which is the second section where the details added, it'll tell you pretty much what percentage of increase it is or isn't. But overall, that increase, it's a decrease of 0.81% in that section of the expenditures for the departments. The non-departmental would decrease $21,000, and the code enforcement would go up $2,600, and that's what I'm saying is really a wash for the fact that we would bring the code enforcement in-house and use the executive assistant / code enforcement administrator as the code enforcement officer. And she currently does most of that work as far as the administration part of code enforcement. You'll see a big drop there in Parks and Recreation, and that's mainly from the fee that we expensed last year for the boardwalks. Well, we paid we paid 50% of it. So, now, if I gave you, and we'll talk about what change it might be. I just want to quickly talk about changing the rollback rate. If you go to the rollback rate, that would mean we would only collect, I've set that at your desk also. If you go to the rollback rate, we would only collect $1,164,000, and I will detail a little bit later what you might give up or will be giving up with that. But I wanted to at least provide that to you. It's a difference of $69,000. Okay. Some of the budget decisions that we've got to make tonight, we got to decide on the sheriff's contract, what we want to do. I had a call with the sheriff on Friday or Thursday, and currently this year's budget is going up 3.6%, which, and right now we have which I have given you previously, the number, the credit or the contract that we share. And I want to make this clear. It's two separate contracts. Beller Shore is not part of our contract. We just get a credit because they use our deputy, okay? And I think we need to understand that the fact of the matter is, if John the deputy is at 12th Street and there's a call in Beller Shore, guess who's going to that call? John, our deputy, because that's how the system works. No different than the fire district, no different than the Clearwater Fire Department showing up here because they can get here faster than, so you're service-wise, I don't know that you're going to see any difference in saying we have one deputy of ourselves. We're going to lose the $34,700 credit if that's what the council wants to do, and that's a decision the council needs to make. So what that would mean is our contract this year is 503. It would go to $556,771. And we need to go somewhere and find that money. So there's $34,000 out of your 69 already. The council's talked about things like video and Zoom and improving the communications in this room. The initial thing that we talked about a couple of weeks ago was $15,000, almost $16,000. We are having the company come back and give us a full-blown estimate. I'm guessing that estimate is going to be somewhere in the $30,000 additional, because we would do some modifications, maybe put some different TVs in and improve it. So we could Zoom and see people up there that are calling in. So I expect that cost, if that's where the council wants to go, that's an additional cost. So just in those two projects, we've eaten up the $69,000 for the most part. One thing I want to update you on, I did speak to the mayor of Beller Shore about the Gulf Boulevard undergrounding money, which I told you I was going to do. And it's going to stay with us as it has in the past. So we will utilize that money to underground the utilities on Gulf Boulevard. We had a nice conversation, and I felt like, nothing's going on right now. So I was very happy with that conversation. And I think there's some other things that I know Councilmember Banker wants to talk about. Buoys, we're out getting prices for that. And Frank and I have talked about it personally, between us, about the requirements. And I think that's another thing that we're going to need to go talk to Beller Shore about. How that would work and the cost to put them in and who's responsible for them and what the requirements are, because according to the people that are telling the city, and I don't know if you've heard any more from that individual you talked to, but what they're telling us is some ordinances have to be changed. And so, it's more than just saying, we'll do it. And I think we can work further on that and some other things that are common building between both cities. Let's see, one thing that changed a little bit, which you'll have at your next meeting, the audit committee met. We had two proposals. One was for $25,000 and one was for $17,500, which is what we paid last year from our same audit firm. The audit committee met and recommended using the same audit firm. I will bring that recommendation to council, and I'll ask tonight, do you want both audit firms to come to the meeting or not? That's a question that, the council, I mean, at this point, $7,500 is quite a bit of money for the audit, and I don't think the audit firm that we've had has done a bad job. But as we've done with everything, we've always went out with the contracts and rebid them. We only got two proposals. So that's where that's at. Some of the capital projects, let me get there. Oops. This sheet on the screens showing you the things that we pretty much save money for each year. Exterior painting of City Hall, carpet replacement. Last year, not this current year, we did a lot of buoy replacement, so we're back to the savings. Computer hardware, the Z-Moore we save money for, the truck, John Deere tractor. So that's stuff that we've been saving money for, so we don't have that big expense all at once at one time. Then we'll go to the capital projects, just to the penny for Pinellas money, the infrastructure sales tax that we get. The Gulf Boulevard beautification, we're going to have to do an amendment on this year's budget because we didn't sign the interlocal agreement with the actual funding until after the budget was already done this year. So we're going to have to do an amendment for about $330,000 for the money for this year, and what I'm proposing to do with that is roll it over into next year, because I don't see us starting the undergrounding at this point until we've got a good pot of money to move forward with it. But next year, the combined number is $930,423, and we'll get that for 3 additional years on top of last year. So it's a pot of money of about $4 million, and we're still negotiating with Duke, because that's the biggest cost issue at this point, and how we're going to do it. Whether we do it like we did at Bellevue Estates Island, where we went out and bid the conduit and stuff separately, and we were the project manager, and then we hired someone to help us, which was very cost effective for Bellevue Estates Island as opposed to Duke doing it. So they are in the process of bringing me a better number than they gave me the first time. So, and I expect it to drop significantly. Some of the facilities that, oops, let's see. Okay, the next slide. Other projects, the money we save for the roof here, roof replacement, what we talked about earlier, the digital sign. When you don't see any dollars in the out years, what that means is in 22 is the year we're going to do that improvement. As an example, we're going to do an improvement to the boat ramp. We've saved enough money, and I think we can move forward with getting that improvement. The pavement at Morgan Park, it needs to be milled, and we'll mill and repave that next year. The money for the Gulf Boulevard beautification I just talked about. There is some money that I'm going to bring or request at the next council meeting. We've got about somewhere around $60,000 left of the previous money that we have to expend before September 30th of this year. And we'll finish the west side of Gulf Boulevard with Spectrum. We've got two little projects there that are about $52,000. So we won't lose that money, we'll use it effectively and go forward there. And if you've been out there, you see a lot less lines going over Gulf Boulevard. And in the very near future, there won't be any lines going over Gulf Boulevard. And if you've driven the city, you'll see a lot of holes right now in a lot of places throughout the city where they're putting conduit in and making connections. Street resurfacing, we've always put about 60,000 in. We'll look at the PCI and see what we can do with that as far as what street paving we need to do next year. Bridge repairs on both Harrison and 22nd. We didn't put any money in there. I think we have a reasonable amount of money for any repairs that we need to make at this point. I do still believe we need to save money for the replacement because there's going to be a time that they need replacement. Street light installation. We're building a fund there so we can do some upgrades on the street lights, eventually get rid of the wood poles, possibly put up concrete poles. That was the discussion, or possibly solar lights if we wait, some length of time. The bridge lighting replacement. We've been saving some money for that, and I do think, we could probably, after this year, probably limit that to 40,000 and just keep that there. But, and I want to clarify that with FEMA, because if you were here during Irma, all of our lights stayed up, all of the other sides went down. And I want to try to clarify if we would be reimbursed for that. So if we would be reimbursed for it, then I don't need to save as much money for it. Because the only time that we probably have to replace one, as an example, since Irma, we've replaced 2 poles, and the county hasn't billed us for them, so I'm good with that. We have a good relationship with them, so we may want to just limit that. And if it happens, then we use the emergency $1 million we got set aside. So, but I want some feedback from the council on their thoughts on that. City seawalls. When we do the dock at 7th Street, we'll look at that seawall and probably do a replacement there. Why build a dock and then have to modify it? One thing I do want to talk about is this area right out here. I want to suggest that we talk to an engineer and put a seawall here, because that scouring is getting worse and worse and worse, and it's coming up this way more. And I think we have enough funding to make an improvement there. And I think that would be an improvement to this area, the city, where all that rock is dumped. If you'll remember in the hurricane, we lost pretty much all the vegetation there, and the rocks got pulled around and got scoured. So that's an opportunity there. And then we'll go to the marina. We adjusted the parking revenue in there, recognizing that the revenue was about $20,000. So we upped that. So what that's going to do is increase the revenue that's transferred to the general fund for next year. In the past, it's been about 41,000. Next year, it's estimated to be 62,000 if we continue to collect parking as it is now. The slip rentals went up about $10,000 with the increases that the council approved a few months ago. They won't go up next year, but they will go up the following year, because we've got that set on like a 5-year plan where every other year we're going to raise the marina rates. Utilities, insurance, and things of that nature are pretty static with the marina. And then there's a list of, right now we have 4 non-residents in the marina out of the 96. Stormwater fund. We estimate that we'll collect about $175,000 this year, and then we have some personnel expenses that we take from the public works out of there. The NPDS numbers cost us about $9,600. Street sweeping is about $7,000. Storm drain maintenance and things that other maintenance, like this year, we regraded this retention pond in the back so the flow would be better. Cleaned out the swale across the street along the edge of the park, and that produced a better flow for when it does rain. And there's 30,000 in there on that page if you look at it, and we don't know if that's going to be required or not. It depends if the governor signs the bill, House Bill 53, which to date hasn't been signed.
Can you talk better into that, Mike, because I can't hear you on 10.
Oh, I'm sorry. What I was saying is that there's 30,000 in the stormwater for a mandate that's a bill, House Bill 53, that we still got, what, 10 days left to decide if the governor's going to sign it or not. But what that's going to create is a requirement to do a needs analysis for the infrastructure in the city for the next 20 years and submit it to the state. That was something that came in the legislative session. So, I think that concludes everything that I have as far as this goes. So, I guess questions from the council. I did give you a sheet that shows the highest and lowest expenses and revenue. As far as what our biggest revenue is, of course, is ad valorem taxes, the collection for the trash collection, and then I gave you a sheet that talks about the expenses and what our highest expenses are. And for the most part, it's contractual services. And you'll see that sheet across the top, law enforcement is the biggest of it, which is $532,000. That's got a $10,000 supplemental patrol that we've been doing this year, where we put out patrols on holidays and special days. And then, of course, garbage and trash, utilities, professional services, insurance and legal fees. I'd say those are the top 6 or 7 items that are our expenses. The stormwater project for next year is 17th and 18th Street. And we've already put a box on 18th Street in. Staff did that, which saved us several $1,000s of having a contractor do it. So we've got a little bit of head start. 12th and 13th is under design and permitting currently, and that's a project that hopefully we'll get out to bid here in the next month or so. I mentioned the reserves are at a little over $2 million. 20% of it we have to keep in reserve which is about $545,000. Hurricanes, $1 million, and that leaves us a reserve of about $2,066,000. So I think our reserve burn rate has slowed. And I will mention again that eventually we're going to get some money from the federal government that we'll have to decide where we're going to use that, which it looks like we can use it for stormwater infrastructure. But we haven't been given a date or time or anything at this point. We've just filled out forms and sent them. So, questions?
You said we only have 4 non-residents. We only have 4 non-residents in the Marine.
Currently,
They pay the same as residents?
no. They pay a higher fee.
How much higher?
Let's see, I think it went for them to, I want to say residents are paying like $8 a foot and non-residents are paying like $12 a foot. Yeah, it's significantly more. But the plan was to raise the resident and raise the non-resident eventually to $15 a foot. And that's over a 5-year period.
I just know there's a lot of residents that would like to get in that Marine, but they can't. Don't want to push any of our residents out. It should be for the government, it should be for the citizens of Delaware.
And there is a resident list, which, you know, one of them leaves, the resident will go in there.
Lynn, I don't know where to begin. We've got 10 things here.
Excuse me.
We'll start with the easy thing. You're transitioning to retirement. Not a major issue for our city.
Seriously, congratulations, okay, but I think this council needs to, we could probably spend a work session or a night just on that. You know, I like Kyle, I've had some dealings with him, I think he's a good guy, and he may be the next person in line, but I think that's something that we all need to discuss here and come up with some type of a decision as to, you know, when you decide that you wish to go watch the Cardinals play, you know.
America's team.
They're my favorite, but, but when, you know, when you decide to do that, we need to kind of have our idea here as to where the council wants to go. Because part of the thing we talked about with charter review was calling it a city manager's position, calling it an administrator position, you know, and there may be differences when you go out to actually look for someone on the outside in terms of what you have to pay and things like that. So, big discussion, I think.
Well, the charter says city manager, so you can't, without a vote of the citizens, you can't change it to administrator. So, but all I'm trying to do is put in place for a few $1,000s to help to put Kyle more involved in the day-to-day operations, bring him to the council meetings, get him more up to date, because when I do decide to retire, which I haven't made a decision at this point, but I think regardless, you need a person that will be here to help the transition, and that's what I'm proposing. I'm not proposing that, you know, if he applies for the job, that's up to him, but that's not for me to say.
With regard to your comments on the sheriff and bringing the code officer inside, you and I have had some discussions on this. I think that's a topic for this council, and I think that's a topic that I want Dan Doherty to be here for. I want to hear his side, okay? It's easy for you to say things up here. I've heard other things. I want to get it all out, okay? I want to hear what the detail is. I want to hear how his experience has been here. I want all of the information out so that we and this community can make the smart decision as to what we have to do. One of the reasons we brought Dan on board was because we weren't getting coverage on the weekend, and now we're talking about having a person during the weekday. Well, that's great, and then the residents, you know, the bad ones that want to cause problems do all their bad stuff on the weekends, and we've had that issue before. So I think that should be scheduled at
Well,
our
that
next
could
council
still
meeting.
be scheduled with the person we're using. That's not the issue. The thing that, and if you read the contract, sheriff's contract, the deputy on duty is supposed to do code enforcement on the weekend.
Yeah, we've heard that experiences.
Yeah.
That doesn't exactly work out, so.
Right.
So, anyway, I'm gonna ask that it be put on the next council session. If you want that decision from this council to make that change, then let's have, I'll call it like a hearing. It's not a hearing, but it's, I want that.
Well, we could have a work session, that's not a problem.
Yeah, that's fine. We can do it as a work session, we can do it a regular council session, whatever easier. Dan Doherty has to be invited for that. I'm glad to hear that the hit to our, I used to call it, hitting the piggy bank, basically. When I came here, we were about $300,000 a year that we were going after the piggy bank to cover our capital projects. And you just announced that if this budget stays the same, we're talking about $100,000. So that's all of the councils, the last two councils here, and the improvement that we've made. We're not hitting that piggy bank, and with $2 million in the bank, we've got a pretty big piggy bank that if we do have to tap it for capital, we're going to be in good shape. So that was good budget expending. The underground, I'm not going to get into any comments because of my personal situation, but I'm glad what Mayor Schmidt said, and I hope that that's correct. Councilmember Bloom said something otherwise at one of their council meetings, okay? And of late, Councilmember Bloom seems to get what he wants there. So before we get euphoric, I would just like to see how their council votes on that. I hope that it is the way Mayor Schmidt said and that we continue to do it. If we continue to do it, my question to you is, I never asked this initially, what's our arrangement with across the street? Do we have an interlocal agreement and liability waivers for the work that we're supervising and doing?
Well, it's the county interlocal agreement. We don't have anything, because all the work for the most part is done in the county right away.
Okay.
So it's an interlocal agreement that says that, in all the utilities that have to get that, they have to get, right-of-way permits to work there. So, they're providing insurance and things of that nature.
But it's covered through a county interlocal.
Right.
That answers the question. That's all. The insurance, you mentioned that insurance is static. I've talked to like 5 people this week who have homeowners bills that are just going through the roof. I talked to a state representative last week who was doing legislation because insurance is going through the roof. Now, I know that's homeowners, but you haven't seen that at all with the city?
Minimalistic, when I say static, what I mean is there's going to be some increase. If you get into the detail, as an example, I put 2 or 3% in for health insurance, okay? Because that's probably one of our biggest insurance costs. Actually, that probably costs us more than liability and property insurance. What I've done over the past couple years is, if they come in with some exorbitant number, then I have to talk to the employees of CODA, of course, but I tell them, hey, this is the numbers I have, and this is all I can expend, so we may have to change a plan or
I'm
something.
talking about liability, and particularly wind coverage and flood coverage. That has been, we're talking 20+% for average homeowners bills this year.
Our flood insurance, let me look here. Because we just paid the flood insurance for next door. And I think it only went up a couple $100. Wasn't much. Flood insurance for Cedar this year was like $6,800, and I've got budgeted $7,500. So this building a little different. Our flood insurance was about $2,800, and I've got budgeted $3,000. I don't anticipate, because this building is elevated. General liability and property, windstorm, those combined are about $44,000, and that's what we've got budgeted this year. They're at 40, so we went up about $4,000. And unfortunately, we're building this budget on stuff that we don't have yet, because they haven't given it to us. Now, the flood insurance, I know, because we just paid it, you know, for our year goes from like May something, I forget what it was, but within the last month, we paid it. So that number I know is good for at least another 12 months. And,
What was that number again?
it was about 6,700, but I can get you the exact number. It's-
That was for that property on Cedar?
Right.
What do we insure now? 250 max for building, right?
Right, that's,
What's the contents?
well, the contents, on top of that, there's a lot of equipment in there. It's more than a house, but I can get you that if you want to know what that is.
Because that seems awful lot.
Well, we shopped it a couple years ago, with what we were paying from, it was Weston. That number was much higher than what I got it for. Yeah.
But we're using FEMA, correct?
No,
Are we doing private?
yeah. Yeah.
Lynn, I'm gonna ask, I just went through this with 3 people, including myself. My house is newer than this building. I mean, they're talking about not even doing coverage for certain people if the roof is older than 4 years, which is absurd, okay? But that's what some of the.
Shingle roof, yeah.
Yeah, well, okay, I don't have a shingle roof, and neither do you, but they're still acting kind of silly. So I'm just gonna tell you, I mean, do whatever you wanna do, but I strongly suggest you make a phone call to the agent and find out what they have up their sleeve that we may not find out about, because you may have sticker shock, 6 months from now, and we've already passed the budget. Unless they're for some reason taking care of government entities better than they are households, this is like a crisis in Florida right now. I mean, the legislature was actually putting, efforts to try to rein this stuff in. A lot of it's due to, people making improper claims and things. So I just suggest you might want to make that phone call and find out what they have coming down the pike for you. I hope you come back and tell me it's going to be 5%. That's great.
Yeah, well, the flood insurance, we locked that rate in for 3 years, so next year would be the 3rd year. I can tell you on Cedar I did that, because it was an option that they gave me at the time, which was cheaper than the company from South Florida called Weston. I don't know any of those companies, I just knew what we needed to cover. So, in Florida, League of Cities, as far as municipality and liability insurance, it's pretty much went, 4 or 5% higher. It's a conglomerate. So, and if the flood insurance, we may have to shop it again and look at what we're covering. But I can find, I'll get you that invoice, Frank.
Council, any other questions, comments? Open it up to the citizens. There's no questions.
Okay, Mr. Reeves, so then we pretty much have went through this tonight. Have we answered what you need to have answered to move forward here?
Well, one thing you haven't answered is, what do we want to do with the sheriff? I kind of need that answer, because they're going to come with a contract here, and if we're going to, is it this council's wish to increase it? Because I did hear that, the concern that we were paying for next door. Well, I think that at this point is not totally correct, because it wouldn't matter where the deputy's at. They would come, whether it's whoever's closest is going to go there, just like the fire department or the ambulance or whoever it is. In the conversation I had with the sheriff, I will tell you, he said, why don't you start your own police department?
Been there, done that.
And I kind of laughed, and I said, well, that's probably 1.1 million at least. And he said, you're right, or go somewhere else, because I think he's frustrated with, some of the comments that have been made. And I understand his frustration, but I think we need to decide, because what happens if Bel-Air Shore says, I don't want to give them that credit anymore? Are you willing to eat 35,000? That's the question right now.
Open for council comments.
If if they did that, wouldn't they have to establish their own police force?
No,
So they would still use our deputy?
they could, the way the sheriff and the fire district and the ambulance all work is if, not to patrol the beach or something like that, but if there's a call, whoever's the closest is going. It's just like for us, if there's a call and they need backup, guess where the deputy comes from? He comes from Bel Air Bluffs, he comes from Indian Rocks Beach, that's the sheriff's deputy. And I know that all of us have seen, we'll say an accident in the street on Gulf Boulevard. Did you see one sheriff car there? No, you saw several. You know, I'd like to be able to go back to the sheriff and say, you know, unless the council tells me differently, no, we want to keep this credit. We don't want to get this $35,000 increase if we can keep it. But that may not be our choice, but I want to know what the council's feedback is on that.
Well, my question is, they're supposed to get 15 minutes a shift. Now, I can understand there's a robbery or something like that, they all respond, right? But that's a half an hour a day they're supposed to do coverage for Bel Air Shores.
No, it's about an hour and a half a day.
Is it 15?
If you calculate, if you want to calculate it that way, but I think you have to calculate it on the crime rate, which there's little or none here. I think you have to calculate it on the calls for service, which is, we're about 95% of the calls for service, they're 4%. And, you know, I gave statistics on if you went by the crime, our credit would be much lower. So I think, you know, in looking at the bigger picture, the question the council's got to answer, do we have a crime problem here with what we're doing now?
Well, neither does Bel Air Shores.
Okay, but that's my point, you know.
But, yeah, but my point is it, am I being given false information that it's 15 minutes a shift, or?
It's not 15 minutes a shift, it was calculated at like 45 minutes a shift.
Okay, so it's an hour and a half
Right,
a day.
right, and if I asked a deputy one time about that, and he told me to close all 3 gates, it takes about 10 minutes. Drive, close the gate, close the gate, close the gate. 10 minutes to open the gate, open the gate, open the gate. If they do a beach patrol, that might take them 15 or 20 minutes. They do little or no house checks, which is a theory that some people here think they do a ton of house checks over there. They don't do any, based on what the daytime deputies have told me. So the really only service that they're getting is the deputies patrolling their parking lot, which he drives by, and if he sees a car in there that, you know, what the daytime deputy told me is, if he sees a car in there that isn't a regular, that he already knows, then he goes in there. But if he doesn't, he doesn't drive in the parking lot. And I can do the same thing, you know, because I know the people that go there on a regular basis that drive their car. So I could drive down the street and say, oh, well, that's so-and-so's car. So I think we have to look at the bigger picture. And the bigger picture is, do we have a problem with the sheriff and the crime and what we're getting from the sheriff? And I don't think we do. And you, all the council members, at every council meeting when the sheriff comes, what is said to the sheriff?
Great job.
Uh,
Yeah, you guys have done a great job. You know, this is not a new issue. You know, this goes back to 2 or 3 councils, and this issue's been raised before. The issue is that I'm a numbers guy. The man-hour counting isn't there, so the only way you can figure it out is you kind of got to do a thought experiment. And we've done it. We've sat down and tried to kind of brainstorm what are those things that the deputy does in the various places during his shift, and the numbers just don't add up. The bottom line is going to be some months we're the winner, some months Bel Air Shore might be the winner. all evens out, and the bottom line of this thing is are you willing to give up $39,000 on a hunch that maybe we're getting the short end of that deal? I'm not sure it is. I think it's a red herring, and I would take a step back, take a breath, and I would just go with the money. That's my advice. I'm not sure the accountants are to that.
Ultimately, we don't have the final decision on that, though, do we? Because if Beller Short is called tomorrow and said, hey, we're done, we're going to do something else, something different, then we would, our budget would increase anyway on that, correct? I mean, we don't have the choice to say, we're not going to give up that credit, we want it anyway, because they're ultimately the main decider.
Well, they are with the sheriff, but, you know, I will tell you, I had a conversation with the sheriff about that, and I would, you know, probably make a phone call to their mayor and say, hey, you know, we don't have crime here. Why are we, you know, I'd probably try to say, it's working, why do we need to change it? And, you know, it's kind of like, I went and made the call to the mayor about the Gulf Boulevard money and explained the situation, and he totally said that we've always done it this way, and the council is aware of that. And I, you know, Mayor, I don't have privy to what conversation you said Mr. Bloom said, but.
Town council meeting. Town council meeting.
Okay. Okay, well, maybe that conversation needs to be had with Mr. Bloom too. And I don't have a problem doing that, because the best benefit for the Gulf Boulevard money is for both of us. Get rid of the power lines, improve the thing. And that's what the money's supposed to be used for. And in my estimation, it's the same with the sheriff. That's the best benefit. The sheriff gives us, you know, sergeants and corporals and all kinds of backup police force. The guy that, and I don't know whatever happened to him, that fell off his bicycle on the bridge. I mean, they closed the bridge for, I don't know, an hour or so. I don't know if any of you even knew about that, but that happened here in the last couple of weeks. And it wasn't a car hitting anybody. It was a guy that fell off his bicycle for whatever reason. And I don't know what the outcome of that is today. But I know he was injured severely. But they had the police, they had the resources, and anything, something like that happens, they have the resources. They're not coming here with one deputy. They're coming here with, in most cases, 2, 3, sometimes even more than that. So, you know, I just feel like maybe we should be talking to Beller Shore and saying, hey, we want to keep this the way it is. And it's not our contract. They have their own contract. And the sheriff could do something else. And I know he was going to talk to them about that. But my recommendation is leave it alone.
I would agree with that totally. It's been working, we get great service. I see no reason whatsoever to change the arrangement that we have with the sheriff and with Beller Shore.
You know, our sheriff's contract isn't up until October. Isn't it September when we
Yeah.
Okay, so this is not up for, it's not up for a vote tonight. This is.
No,
we get
there's no
consensus, but we don't
vote
have to
tonight.
vote.
I'm just trying to get some feedback.
Okay, that's fine. Just to make sure everybody's.
Because the budget's going to have to be adjusted. Because right now, the budget is $34,000 short. Based on the credit that's a possibility. Because I put it in there as what the sheriff sent me, which I provided you with a copy of.
I'll go to the citizens in a second. I'll go to the council. Council, any other comments? Okay, citizens. From the podium here, you want to step aside for a second.
Dry mouth. Talk too much.
You can sit down in your seat.
Nice chair.
Jim Vanskoy, 7th Street, Belmar Beach. Bella Shore's last council meeting, they said there would be no increase for the sheriff cost. So are we absorbing that cost? That's my question to this council. So even if we stay with them in this situation, are we absorbing that cost? If we have to take an increase, I believe they should take their part of the increase. It's only right, we should not absorb that. Thank you.
Thank you. Citizens? Right back to council.
Mayor,
Yeah.
I would expect that, based on how the sheriff calculates their numbers, because it's, how it's done currently is by population.
Right.
So, and I will confirm that with the sheriff, but the population numbers for us have increased. We're at like 1625, so I don't, maybe their population isn't as high and it adjusted, but I'll clarify that, because they should get, based on population, they should, the sheriff's contract throughout, I don't care if it's Indian Rocks or Bel Air Bluffs, he gives you that percentage of increase, it's what it is for everybody. So they don't get any, but it could be that their population, and then you put our 1625 in it, where last year I think it was it 1566, Patty? Something like that. So we've had an increase in population, so maybe our share is a little bit more. But
So that might not be a correct comment or
Right.
correct understanding. There might be slight, because if the sheriff price is going up 3%, just cost of living basically, they might see that, but then we may have a little difference in population, maybe we have a bigger population gain, that's what you're basically
Well,
saying.
we do have
Probably
from the
do.
prior year. And maybe theirs is down. I think last year's, if I remember right, their population last year was like 109 and ours was 1566, I think. I may be off, one or two heads, but I guess we could go over and count, but no, I don't think so.
Do we have a cost per hour that the sheriff would charge?
You got the, how it's based on a deputy. And I gave you, probably a couple weeks ago, the sheet from the sheriff. And what one deputy cost per deputy is $103,575. And our deputies have a post of 4 times 1.2 with the relief factor. So, you can probably put that in a cost per hour if you divide the 100,000. I'm guessing it's probably somewhere around $50 an hour, give or take.
I was figuring around $49.
So that's probably pretty close.
So, that comes out to like $21,000 for the hour and a half a week, or an 8-day times 8 times 7 times 52. And then we're getting what, 39,000?
34.
34,000, so then there's another $12,000, $13,000 in miscellaneous.
Yeah. Yeah, because the way the sheriff allocates it, every city pays the same for the number of deputies they have. And for us,
And I'm not, don't use that $49 figure.
that's probably pretty close.
I'm just doing a rough calculation.
No, that's probably pretty close. I think Danny's costing us about $48 an hour right now, 3%, $1.50. So it's maybe $49.50 next year.
Cheap,
Huh?
very cheap.
And they get bigger.
They make more than that in Philadelphia, right?
I know that.
They get shot in Philadelphia too, so.
But I think that the council has to kind of give me some feedback on where we want to go with this. And I think I need to relay to the sheriff, hey, we're fine leaving it as it is. Or not, if the council doesn't.
I mean, again, Lynn, I'm going to stress that this is a determination that comes up when we ratify the contract. We've already ratified it through September. If you want to take a poll where the council stands I have no problem with that.
Well, that's what I'm
It's going to be
asking.
binding on September, it's not, so, I mean, we can't break our own rules here.
No, I'm just asking for what the council's direction is.
Okay, that's fine.
So if the sheriff comes back and tells me, do you want the credit, because Bel Air Shore is willing to continue that, is the council okay with that? Because if you're not, then I need to tell the sheriff, no, we're not, we're gonna pay the $34,000.
So, in a nutshell, are we still good as a council with a sharing arrangement with Bel Air Shore? This year it's approximately 34, it might go up or down slightly based on population or allocation. Not gonna change drastically. If the answer is no, then he's gonna go back and say, we're not good with that, and
Then we'll have to increase the budget
Right.
35,000.
And if we say yes, then it may change slightly, but we don't have much more of a discussion than on this.
I have no issues whatsoever with the current situation. The only thing that I would recommend is, since it's possible that those things may change whenever the contract comes up, we maybe need to pad a little bit in the budget just to compensate for the difference in case we lose that.
Well, I'm hoping before we pass well, I will know that before we pass our final budget in September, so I'll have to adjust it by then. But at this point, if we're fortunate and keep the situation, then it's good for us, I think.
I've been very satisfied with the services we receive from Pinellas County.
I'm gonna agree with everything Vice Mayor Dave Gaddis just said. I think we should leave it alone.
Yes,
I'm just still confused on, our deputy goes to Bel Air Shores to do business. And then they're saying that possibly we will not get that credit if we raise these issues. Now, where is the money going from Bel Air Shores to provide that deputy? Bel Air Shores has to make a payment, is what I'm saying. Something's not connected in my head, and I apologize for my stupidity or whatever.
Well, what would happen, there's a couple options, I guess, that could
Well,
happen.
let me finish. I mean, I think I'm being held hostage, okay, by saying, well, if you don't agree to it, we're not going to give you the money. Well, who's going to pay for the sheriff from Bel Air Shores?
They are.
Okay, so they're going to use whose deputy?
Well, that's what can be debatable, as an example.
All right.
If we said we don't want to have the arrangement we have today, and I'm not saying that Bel Air Bluffs or Indian Rocks or anybody would,
Well, they still have to pay.
yes,
Okay, so what I'm saying is that they use IRB or Sankey or whatever, then they still have to pay.
yes.
Okay, so does the sheriff department have any latitude on saying what deputy you're going to use?
They have a system, just like the fire and everybody else. First to the thing,
That's the point I'm trying to make. They're not going to say, well, okay, you're not going to use Bel Air Beach, but
No.
you're going to use Treasure Island. I mean, it would be ridiculous. You have to use the closest deputy.
that's right.
So I don't think I'm not getting hogtied here, is what I'm saying. All right, they're going to have to use Bel Air Beach, in my opinion. And we would get the credit regardless.
No,
No, the way I understand it is for routine patrol purposes, if it goes to Indian Rocks Beach or Bel Air, they're gonna come up 5 minutes to drive up from Indian Rocks Beach and do their normal patrol and then turn around and go back. But in the case where they've got an emergency call, a 911 call or some break-in or
Call
something,
for service.
it's gonna be the closest deputy. And if that's Bel Air Beach,
I agree with you, but I don't believe the sheriff department's going to say we're going to do your daily patrols with IRB or anybody else. You're going to use the local,
No.
quickest.
no, he can't. Not if it's not part of the thing. He'd have to use either another, I mean, I can't say that it would be Indian Rocks or someone else that has the sheriff. We're surrounded by him, so that could happen.
Right, and technically, if Indian Rocks Beach and Bel Air Bluffs doesn't agree to it, they may be in worse shape and have to pay 3 times as much to get one person throughout the day. So I don't think we're hogtied. I think
That's what I'm saying.
they should be hogtied.
I agree.
No, and, you know, the sheriff told me he had 2 or 3 options. He had an option to talk to Indian Rocks, he had an option to talk to Beller Bluffs, he had an option to, he called it county car, I don't know what that means. He didn't really explain it to me. Or he has the option to do what we're doing. But that's gonna be determined by, you know, the situation. But in the end, I don't think it really matters one way or the other. It's, if someone needs service, you don't want them denied the service, whether it's there or somewhere else.
I'm for the current situation. I'm satisfied with the service, and I think for budgetary planning purposes, we need to figure that into the budget, that credit. So that's why I think we need to have some sort of consensus moving forward, just for budgetary planning purposes. Obviously, when the contract comes due, we can tweak the contract or
Contract approval is a separate thing. Right now, we have 5 people who are in favor of it. I'm not going to express any opinion either way until I see final numbers. Frank, for or against, doesn't matter. It really doesn't at this point.
I feel the sheriff department does an excellent job.
This isn't about that, it's about how we allocate our services.
I question the cost.
Okay, so you have 5 people, so you can tell the sheriff at this point that you have a consensus of the council for the cost sharing, and I think everybody is gonna have a look at this come September to make sure that that cost has been equally and properly shared. And that's where
Yeah,
it'll
well,
come down.
right
to
now, it's
contract.
done by population.
Right, that's fine, so, okay. Anybody else have any other questions on the budget before we close it?
I had just one.
Yes, Edward.
We talked about the bridge light replacement, and you know, I've had sidebars on this, and I think you're kind of starting to form that little idea, but maybe we need to craft some sort of policy so that we've got this $1 million sitting in a hurricane fund, and it's that's a lot of money sitting there. And maybe for a big storm moving through, knocking down lights, rather than having 30 or 40,000 sitting in reserve earmarked for bridge lights, maybe if you have a storm, you lose lights, it's a one-time justifiable expense. I pull it out of the hurricane fund, we change the policy so we can do that with a repayment schedule of maybe 1 to 2 budget cycles, and it's all back in there. But, maybe rather than have money sitting there in reserves, it's already sitting there in hurricane fund, why have extra money on the side?
I had a comment, it's not necessarily about the budget, but actually the media that it's being distributed on. I did get a little bit confused when comparing the handouts to what you gave me. Some of them looked like they were newer.
There was a couple updates.
Maybe some of them were older. Not everything matched it's a little confusing. Maybe as you're making changes, you create a new revision. And
That's-
maybe in the footer, you publish it so that every time we get one of these, even if it's in a PDF format, we know which one we're looking at.
Yeah, well, what I was trying to get out of tonight is your feedback. Now, you're gonna get another, and I'm gonna tell you to toss what you got, because I'm gonna do some, you know, a couple modifications. Then you'll get a cleaner copy, it'll have page numbers on it. But this is like the, what do you want to call it?
Rough draft.
The first draft to see what the council's feedback and anything they want to change. Do you want me to put money in there as an example? That's another question. Or the video system, audio, video, do you want me to put money in there? I hopefully, we're meeting with the gentleman on June 29th, so hopefully we'll have some better numbers shortly after that. And at the next budget session, if he gives me a number, I'll put it in there, and then you can tell me, take it out or leave it alone. And the thing with the streetlights, maybe we repurpose that money. You know, that's fine. I will make a couple phone calls to see if they got reimbursed by FEMA, because sometimes some of those things aren't reimbursable. Because all of their lights were gone.
Anything else? Okay, thank you, Lynn. Real good, it's going on 8 o'clock, we got this, doesn't look to be too long of an issue, but you never know, we're gonna need a break. Number 3, discuss Councilmember Bankard's email to council and residents, bullet point, insights on future budgetary impacts and sunshine implications. I don't see a name here, so I'm going to assume it's the city manager who put this on, is that correct?
Actually, it was me.
Okay, so from now on, because I've asked this only about 25 times, I don't know who makes these motions if you don't see it, so this should say motion by gun or item by gun. Okay? Go ahead, Glenn.
Yeah, the only question I had on this thing was the statement about unforeseen monetary damage in the future could cripple our city. Because we're talking about budget and if there's a budgetary impact, I just was wondering what the insights were on that. And whether or not we should be budgeting money for that, if there's something there. I'm not quite sure I understand what unforeseen monetary damages we're considering and how it's going to cripple the city. If there's a value against that, if there's, I guess I'm lost, I'm not quite sure what's being addressed there.
Frank, go ahead.
On the June 7th meeting,
Into the mic.
I'm sorry. On the June 7th meeting, I was crystal clear on my thoughts going forward. There was a resolution passed that was resolved. I think the record speaks for itself and my thoughts on that.
Well, I mean, I was at that meeting, so I'm just asking. Okay, so then could you just go back and clarify?
Well, I think the record on June 7th that you have a copy, that you can get a copy of, clearly, I don't want to say something now that the resolution has been passed. It's been adopted. It's closed business.
I would like to add to what you're saying right now. Apparently it's not, because this was sent out to all council members after that meeting. So it was not resolved, otherwise you wouldn't have written it. So I think Mr. Gunn has a very valid point. Do you know something that the rest of us don't know?
All right, hang on a second, I'm going to jump into this. First off, this isn't a court of law. He's not under deposition or subpoena. If he wishes to speak about it, by all means speak, Mr. Banker. If you don't, and you want to refer to the record, that's fine. As for what you write afterward, we kind of lose sight of this a lot in this city. You don't lose your First Amendment rights to write when you leave this building. You can disagree with resolutions. We had a council member that was 6-1 disagreed with a bridge thing, went all the way to Nick DeSigley and got stuff done. So listen, if you want to write a letter, you write a letter. There is an issue here that I think Mr. Glenn wants to speak about with potential sunshine, which has to be talked about briefly. But if you don't want to talk about it, that's it. Don't be forced into doing anything. No one here is going to force you.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
let's clear the record right off the get-go. I had a conversation with the city attorney about this. We talked about almost for 20 minutes about the email, okay? At the end of the 20 minutes, our attorney had to go to another conference. It was the wrong email that we were discussing, all right? It wasn't until he sent me the email, which I didn't even know went to all you council members.
I'm not on there.
Well, when I sent my reply back, it was to two constituents that wrote to me, okay? I don't know how it went to, excuse me, well, don't excuse me, because I don't know how it went to I don't know how it went to anybody except those two people, all right? So now, I don't know how it went. I said, when I was volunteering doing dog walking off my phone, hey, I made a mistake, I didn't reply to all, I don't think I did, though. I don't know why I went there. But the record speaks for itself. The resolution was closed. It was, I don't have a copy of the resolution here. I can pull it up on my computer, I'm sure. But it says immediately upon the vote that you would sign. So it's over. It's done. The business is old business. It wasn't being resurrected. Are you either one of you guys proposing to rescind the resolution?
First off, sunshine implications, you're putting words in there, I didn't raise that as a pejorative thing. I didn't raise the sunshine implications as a pejorative thing. I think that could have been an honest mistake, but you should be aware of it. That I'm not.
Well, I don't believe I violated any sunshine.
Well, I'm not gonna go there. Insights on future budgetary impact. Unforeseen monetary damage of the future could cripple our city. I'm at a loss. I am on this email and I'm just questioning, what does that mean?
I think, Frank, I'm gonna have you answer, then Robin had her hand up, so respond, and then Robin has the floor. Go ahead.
I would ask if you're that inquisitive about this, that the city clerk has a tape and she can play back the minutes. And it's crystal clear what I said.
Hey, it's on the website. Go ahead.
I think there's two issues with this. I think the first issue, which is valid, the sunshine implication, which, as soon as I saw that, I was like, ooh, sunshine. And I just attribute it to him being newer and not maybe as aware. It's very easy to hit reply all, because every time I reply, I'm so scared about doing that, I like triple check to make sure it's only getting to one. The second part of this that Glenn brings up, I think is kind of passive aggressive here. I think, I don't know, to me, your email response seemed a little passive aggressive and snarky. Granted, it's written, so tone is different, but in your reply too, Vice Mayor, it seemed a little passive aggressive because, I also voted against the resolution. I still don't agree with the resolution, but it's passed, it's over, and I'm ready to pull up my big girl panties and move on like we all should, which we have trouble doing often. And I think, personally, Glenn, I think, and what you did it before me, the email response, I would have maybe sent something to Patty or to Fred and said, hey, just maybe refresh Frank's memory about the sunshine law, when it's okay to do email in case he doesn't know. To me, this seems passive aggressive, and I feel like we're tattling and we're getting principal involved or something, so.
What
That's just
was my exact response, email response? And I think it was to the city clerk and the city manager.
But you said
I said I'm concerned about the sunshine implications, that was it, pure.
yes, but this was forwarded to everybody.
Who forwarded it to everybody? My email?
It was on the agenda.
I think Patty sent it, it's on the agenda, I have your email right here.
Yeah, we got it.
So that, to me,
So my question again is the unforeseen monetary damages in the future. I'll go back.
I apologize, Mr. Dunnett, you weren't listening when I was explaining. That's all I can say.
Let's talk a second about sunshine. I'm gonna ask the city attorney if there's anything I say that's incorrect here, because this, the way sunshine's bantered about in this city, the legislators are turning over in their graves, okay? It is not, and I'm reading from the Sunshine Manual, okay? The Attorney General's office stated it is not a direct violation of the Sunshine Law for members to circulate their own written position papers on the same subject as long as the board members avoid any discussion or debate amongst themselves except at open public meeting. This practice is strongly discouraged. That's Attorney General's Order 07-35, see also AG 001-21. You didn't break a single law. Okay, as far as I'm concerned, and I'm sure the city, let me finish and then you can talk. So, it's discouraged. If somebody responds to this publicly, that's when the sunshine thing gets triggered, because now there's a discussion going back and forth. Glenn and Dave and I went to EMO 1, that was covered in detail. They went to EMO 2, I don't know if they have a refresher on it, but certainly that's been the Florida League of Cities position also, and that's the way I learned it. So you get what they call the first bite at the apple, you took it. You didn't do one, as far as I'm concerned, you didn't do one thing wrong. So if the city attorney has a different view, I'd love to hear it. But, that there's nothing wrong with what you did. It's not, it probably shouldn't be done regularly, but.
I don't think I did anything wrong either, because A, I didn't know it sent to everybody, but B, I want to thank Mr. Dunn for bringing it to the council, because there is a way to cure sunshine violations, and he just did it.
Mr. Riley, do you have something to add on this, in terms of this discussion with regard to sunshine at all? Any advice, any suggestions, or anything else?
I'll have suggestions. The suggestion is that as I understand it, it was an inadvertent, unintentional response to all city council members that y'all probably get tired of me saying stuff like this, but I'm always going to say it. Be in the position of being in the safe harbor, not in the position of splitting hairs. And a lot of times, people want to try and split hairs and that means you're barely on one side of the line. The far better thing is to be clearly on one side of the line, and obviously you want to be in the safe harbor. The thing that it gets tedious of me to do it, but I do it every time that I write an email to y'all. I, at the end of it, say, to ensure compliance with the Sunshine Law, please do not respond to this with a group email text. If you have a question, please call me directly. I do that every time. I've done it for years. I think I say the same thing every time, but I do that because it's a mental step that I need to take, and I would encourage y'all to do the same thing. I'll go away from this situation to a different one that is evolving, and it's getting people into trouble all over the state, and that is social media. Somebody posts they're friends with each other, council members on Facebook, and somebody makes a comment about something related to city business, and then somebody else who's on the commission or the council responds to it in some way, even as simple as a thumbs up. And that's gotten people in trouble, and, you know, it's a fine line, but my advice to y'all is don't make it a fine line, be clearly in the safe harbor, and, you're new to government, and it's something you have to learn. From talking to you, it was clear to me there was no ill intent, there was no motivation to violate the law. In fact, you were very concerned about making sure that there wasn't an issue. And I don't think that this is something you should dwell on. I think it's something you brought up. Councilmember Gunn's brought it up, it's been discussed, and you should move on. That's my opinion.
I'd like to make one more comment, and then I'll try it. Basically, I'm going to first say the reason why I consider this an ongoing conversation directed at us is you were not very happy whenever the meeting was over, whenever that one agenda item was complete. So, see this email the next day, it looks like you're harping on us. Automatically, I came to the conclusion, that's my fault, that's on me, all right? I'm going to give you the benefit of the doubt and accept that you made a mistake, that it was an accident, and just walk away from it.
Well, I don't wear big girl panties like my colleague.
We're not going to ask for proof.
But what I'm saying is, it was a mistake that it went to all the council members, right? Was I happy about the resolution? No, I'm still not happy about it, but it's over with. That's what a resolution is. And you move on.
And so you know, the rules of order call that once an item is, and we can debate it, we're not going to debate something that we did before, but we certainly talk about stuff that happened before prior meetings. So this discussion is appropriate. Once something is voted on, we don't discuss it again in that session or again or at the end of the night when it's wrapped up. But if you want to go out the next day, or anyone wants to go out the next day and hold a press conference and say, gee, the council was way off, you have that right. You have every right in the world. No one here is going to stop you. And if they do, they're going to get the city into a major problem. So you have First Amendment right to say what you want. You're not the only person who's not happy with that resolution, and I'll leave it at that. So what else we have? Anything else?
I just wanted to make a comment as well. I don't think that, I understand what you said, City Attorney Riley, but I don't think that we're the proper forum to even decide if it's a sunshine. Wouldn't that be the Attorney General that should be turned over to see? I mean, I don't think we have enough legal knowledge about it or understanding of it to make any determination or comments.
Well, there's a procedure in Florida law. If somebody wants to make a complaint to the Commission on Ethics, then they can do that. not to get off into another topic, but I will say it only in passing. The reason I sent you the memo I sent today to the city council members about the application of a Florida bar rule is because I want you to understand, the council members to understand the role that I play in this. I'm not supposed to take the ball and then, it's not my role to prosecute anybody. It's my role to do what I put, or what I highlighted in that rule, and that's exactly what I've done. So if somebody here is so aggrieved by that, what has happened, and now that you have an explanation that it was an inadvertent thing, yet they still want to make a ethics complaint, then they can do that. That's up to them.
Citizens? No comments. Okay. That's
Just
yeah. Go ahead.
one question. Do you want the consensus of the council? The audit committee did not bring the groups in, they just looked at their
We need to touch on that.
and
Hang on, we're not done. Let me finish this and just bring that back up under general business. Let's take care of number 3. Okay?
Well, I thought-
We missed that. We're going to harken back to that. You did ask that question. Does anybody else have anything else on item 3? Okay, that closes it. Lynn, the audit committee. I'll try and maybe cut through this real quickly. It has always been our position to bring the top-ranked people in for a presentation. I think that they took the time to make a bid. Even though they might be in second place, maybe they could explain why their services are worth more than the other people. We only have 2. It's not going to take that long. One is the incumbent. We were going to do that we did that with city attorney. We picked the top 3. And had Mr. Marino bid, he would have automatically got to the final. So we said, so basically, why not? I mean, that's my opinion. If anybody else can't spare 15 minutes, we'll get to you, Ron, and when we get to the council. Dave's fine? Come on, guys, into the mic.
Yes.
Thanks.
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Ron, did you have something you want to add? And go to the citizens. Go right by Lynn. Go right by Lynn here.
So I appreciate it. As chair of the audit committee, I think it's a waste of time, honestly, to bring 2 groups in. We read the professional, well-done proposals. We thought it was pretty far apart between the 2. The incumbent, Saltmarsh, probably was a more professional and fully completed proposal together. So I just, after some of these discussions I see and how long some of these discussions, I think just from an efficiency of the meeting perspective, I'd recommend, as a chair of the audit committee, that they don't come and do a presentation. So that's just a comment I want to make.
Judith, over here.
Can we have him announce his name?
Yeah, but I just did it. Ron Chiganek, he's, I think Donato, right? Yes. Okay. You didn't have anything you wanted to add? Okay. Anything else? No more citizen comments? Council, we said we wanted to bring him in. Does that change our opinion? Doesn't change mine.
Is it gonna cost us anything?
No. We're trying to get business. They better not charge us.
What would you expect to hear that would change your mind or change the opinion?
Well, I think back to when the night Fred Riley came in, and, if you were a betting person, there were some pretty heavy law firms that came in. And if you were going to bet, the favorite was probably not, no offense to Fred, not Fred Riley, okay? And Fred came here and he did a great presentation and his credentials were excellent, and he was the winner that night, okay? So I respect what they did, and we're probably going to vote just the way they did, but they put a lot of effort into it. If they want to come in, if they don't want to come in, that's fine too. But I just think we owe that much. It's only 2 people, so and Saltmarsh we're familiar with, but I think it's a courtesy more. I don't mind another 15 minutes. That's all we're going to give them, like 10, 15 minutes for presentation.
yeah, we'd do it at the beginning of the council meeting, and then I'd ask for, selection, and then we go ahead, because they will start the audit sometime in August, so we're on a good timeline, is what I'm telling you, and we need to. What I'll do, I'll contact both of them, and I will pass on the rankings.
Absolutely.
And, it may be that the other one says, I don't want to come, I don't know, because there was that quite disparity.
It's up to them. If they don't want to come, obviously, Salt Marsh can or does not have to come. They know what the recommendation is right now.
But what we want to do is put something on the council agenda for July 6th to, move forward with execution of the contract with whoever the city council selects.
It's an up or down vote that night on one of them, yes.
If one bails out, what's the other firm? Salt Marsh is the one we're using.
Yeah, that's
If
how,
the other firms,
Bowser,
if they opt not to come to our invite, is there even a need to have that presentation?
I think, again, give them the option because it's not a fait accompli that just because, again, because the committee recommended it, we're each going to make our own decisions after analysis. Would I do it if I were Salt Marsh? Yeah, I'd come here and say, any questions? I've taken the time to come here. I'd love to continue as your auditor. That's what I would do, but I don't know.
I would expect they will come regardless, Salt Marsh for sure. I don't know, John Hauser may come say,
They're welcome if they want to. So we're good with that, we're going to invite them?
Yeah.
Now, I'm just mentioning to you, I'm hearing a lot of things on this July meeting. That's the anniversary of our 7-hour meeting, like last year.
Lining it up.
Yeah, just keep an eye on what you're putting on our table here. So, see if you can beat it. Go ahead.
I see 31, you're in trouble.
All right.
No, you've got a couple ordinances, second readings.
Okay.
Patty, what else have we got? Oh, the Gulf Boulevard money for, because we have to expend it before September for the Verizon, or Spectrum. Too many things in my head right now. And then I think there's just a couple other things. I don't think we've got any other ordinances at this time. We're going to probably try to do a work session on the sign ordinance at some point. And maybe if you want the code person, we can work that in. But, so what I would suggest is we think about a couple dates in July. Okay? Maybe it's the second Monday and then you got the third Monday.
We'll have 3 meetings in July. That's okay. We had a couple months where we had nothing, so that's, we had 1 meeting.
So right now we have July 6th at 19 on the books, and we may be adding another one. Is that what I'm hearing just like?
So we would be probably, if we kept it on Monday, it would be July 12th? Is that right, Patty?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, I got lucky. But that would be probably the sign ordinance and.
Well, we had given Fred time on that. I'm not gonna, because we can move it to a different date too, so we still have enough notice time, Patty, if we announce it at the council meeting?
Yeah.
Yes, so
Because it's a work session.
we'll see where Fred is at without overwhelming him, because remember, we had quite a bit of stuff on that. So, yeah, that's fine.
And if not, then we'll figure out something else with the code enforcement, because that should be.
We could do both of them at the same. That's 2 heavy topics, those, citizens, that's some comments and signage. Okay, any other council comments, general business or item 4? I had a couple of things, but. Not yet, we're not going yet. But it's only, come on, it's 8:15, Gomer Pyle comes on at 9, no rush. All right, I got two quick things, okay? Last time, we keep doing this, and I don't really think it's appropriate. We keep putting the minutes in the consent agenda. And we normally had moved them when there was an issue out of the consent agenda, except last time we didn't do that. So buried in our minutes, I think, is a vote that got completely buried in terms of the dissenting vote. It's not specified who made it. That's what I wanted to object on last time. I object, but get it corrected. I'm calling voice votes, but I'm not going to call them, and this is optional to me, if we're going to bury the vote. I've always been of the impression that you own your vote, so we put it in the record. I really think that we should put, it's not a consent agenda. Consent agenda is for ministerial stuff that doesn't require discussion. It's National Earthworm Month, and we all agree we're going to celebrate it, wonderful, we put it in the consent agenda because we don't need this stuff. But when you're doing the minutes, there's almost always some kind of a question, and if there's not, it takes like 10 seconds to say anybody have any problems, and we blow through it and we approve it. But if we're gonna start having incomplete minutes, not showing, reflecting the full votes, then I'm gonna call a voice vote, and not a voice vote, I'm gonna call a roll vote for everything, because that's optional. And if it takes a little longer, so be it. So the simple solution is just move the approval of minutes out of the consent agenda into the regular. Do I have a problem with it? Okay, and that's what we'll do. Consent agenda doesn't include the minutes, and then we can dispose of them quickly. Lynn, the boat ramp. You told me we were gonna have it open. I got spies. They told me I haven't put my kayak in the water yet, but I've been too busy. The boat ramp's not open. When's it gonna be open?
We'll get it open this week. We had fish detail last week.
I understand that, and I appreciate that cleanup. Good job. Okay, last, the city submerged land thing. Fred issued us a memo today. Leslie, I know you might have just got it. It was like the end of the day. I think this may need some more. I have legal issues with this in terms of what happens when you fill in other people's land and who owns the dirt and who owns, we know we own the water. It gets to a complicated real estate issue. So if that's going to come back up before us, I think we need to hash some stuff out. How's the best way to do it? I don't know. I asked Lynn when I was here the other day, I said maybe I can sit down with him and go through the maps and see what we're talking about here, but I have more questions than I have answers at this point, although I think Fred did resolve the one issue with regard to the charter, so. But
You can come in and I can show you what I'm talking about on maps, because the line, like I said, it weaves. Like, that first section, it's wider down to through probably 2nd or 3rd Street, and then it goes back into the seawall, and then it comes out again a couple other places. So if you click on the map, on the property appraiser's map, you can see where the property lines are lined up. And the submerged lands is, when you click on the property outside of their property, it says it's owned by the city of Bel Air Beach and it's called submerged lands. Well, in the research I did when Mrs. Lavinda, they did hers, we found that somewhere in the 60s or 70s, I don't recollect all of it, I'll have to probably do some digging to find it, but the state, there's a land organization that gave that to the city because the city was better equipped to control the filling of the lands. And probably most of this, I don't know when their seawalls were put in, but in the 60s and 70s, there probably weren't seawalls there. It was probably just rocks or dirt or, So Johnny comes along, I need to push a little dirt in here, because my backyard's not.
there's a lot of dirt. Why don't we do this? Let me meet with you, and then maybe we'll get whatever questions I have that you can't answer. I think it's going to get into some legal stuff, and then you, as the city representative, can determine if you want to refer that to Mr. Riley. They're not simple, questions that he's going to answer off the top of his head. We're going to get into, what happens in this strange situation when you do this, and it's probably not the first time it's happened in the state of Florida, but I don't know the law on it. I've never, it doesn't normally happen, but I'm sure it's not the first time. So let me do that. What is your schedule like in the next week or so? You're around?
Yeah.
I'll give you a call.
Mr. Chairman, on that easement issue. Now, if it's our land, they've already built on it. Can't we sell them the land at $1 a square foot? It's not a lot of money. Those people didn't do anything wrong, in my opinion. They've inherited a mess. Why drag this out? God forbid one of their guests drowns in their pool that would be on the city property. Are we liable?
Awesome. Yeah, to your point, one of the people, again, this is all new to me too, one of the people came up after the meeting last week and said to me, there's condos that this has been happening at, because they're selling on the land. Now, I don't know if they're selling it at arm's length, or if they're selling it, like you say, at $1 a square foot or something.
Well, we would get the tax revenue back. We would make out on this.
The only problem is if we start getting into selling land, anytime we're selling city land, that's the charter question that I have for Mr. Riley. He's going to answer that one in the affirmative. That has to go to the voters to actually sell city land. So that's where, we have a situation here. And I'm not, when you go to First Street, if you look at this house, because I did, they got a wall that goes right there. Well, that wall actually extends into what would have been our water, and their dock is in what would be our water. So you can't access it as a citizen, but I'm saying, well, okay, if you take that piece of that wall down, you have an extension of First Street Park. I'm not saying that's what we should do, okay? I feel sorry too, but we need to square this thing away. Somebody's filled our land in, you know, and I mean, it's a
I understand that, but these residents bought this, you know, and I would like to see just this cleaned up as fast as possible at the least expense to them.
I just want to make sure we do it right, because if we give away chartered lands, we all can say goodbye to being on council.
I'm not giving it away.
Yeah, or even sell it. I can't, even if I can sell it for $1,000 a square foot, we're not allowed to sell anything. I can't sell you a tree from the garden in the back there, so.
Mayor, I don't think in this land, it would be like Florida Communities Trust land, I'm guessing.
I can't sell it either for there.
You can't sell it.
Right.
At all.
I believe that under the Constitution, you can sell some type of land if it's state-owned with the consent, like.
This would have to go to the voters, and we went through this when we were going to take a look at every park in the city, because we did an analysis to say, is there anything we could do with them besides just have people put their dogs there? And we looked at it, and most of these things are very restricted, and I think this was one of them, because we asked about this, and Lynn checked it for us, and it's, yeah, Florida gave it to us, but it's like we're giving it to you, but if you do anything with it, then it's ours.
Reverts to us.
It goes back to Florida, so it's not even ours to give.
I'm just saying, my heart goes out to those people, I mean, they're in a mess.
Yeah, but I think we want to solve it. I think we want to work with them. That's my position, but I want to do this right, okay? And I don't know that the encroachment easement is the right way to go. So I'm volunteering my time, which is fairly expensive as an attorney, to sit down with you. And I will come up with the stuff and I will lay it out. You always wanted me to go through, you to go to Fred. So I will go through this with, I need your knowledge because you have the historical background that I don't have for this. And I can tell you the questions I want to have, and then, you know, Fred can probably give us maybe the right way to go so that we stay compliant with the charter. I have no problem selling it for $1 a foot, but that has to go on a referendum if that's what we do. If we can give a walking easement or an encroachment easement, well, that'd be fine too. But whatever we do for one, you know, and I'm not going by what they did in the past. We all here because we didn't like what was going on in the past. But, you know, let's do it right now and make sure we do it in the future. Because if this person comes along, I think the next person will be behind them. It seems like it's a problem.
Yeah, it seems like what happens is if the title company picks it up, that's when it becomes an issue.
I'm not saying.
And all those properties, I can tell you for the most part, a lot of them have been sold since I've worked here, I know for a fact, and it never was brought up. That never came up in a title search.
That's what title insurance is for. I mean, but we're not trying to strip them of their thing. I'm not advocating that we put up a wall and take it over, but by the same token, you had a great point. If somebody gets hurt, somebody drowns in their swimming pool, well, is that my problem as a city person? That's what we have to be thinking about here, and there are swimming pools that go into that. I think in this case, the swimming pool deck goes right into it, so, yeah, I mean, we'll give it to you. I don't think we're gonna go excavate it and put it back to water. Florida probably won't let us do that either, so. All right, anybody else have anything else to Ben?
I just want to back up for a second on this consent agenda thing. It went by pretty fast, and my feeling is it's a back step from best practices. We started throwing the minutes in the consent agenda because 99% of the time it is a ministerial kind of thing. Anybody have any objections? And this one went askew because it was you who wanted to withdraw stuff. Ordinarily, somebody withdraws something and they just amend the agenda, right? So this one went askew because there's a mechanism to do that if you want to make a motion. You just pass the gavel. But what I'm saying is to start pulling all the minutes out is backtracking against best practices. We started throwing those things in.
Best practices is not the Attorney General's best practice, I'll tell you that. If it's League of Cities, that's just their opinion. But the definition of a consent agenda is a normal recurring item that does not require any discussion. I will show you how many things we have pulled out. We constantly, usually me, because I actually read every word of the minutes, and find issues with them. And so, I mean, I don't think it takes any time to say, you know, item 5 minutes, anybody have any questions? No, boom, we call a voice vote and it's done. We can dispose of it almost as quickly, okay? Yeah, if there's 6 things in minutes, but Patty's been pretty caught up on the minutes. We've been getting them almost like the next time.
I guess by best practices, I mean, having attended other city council meetings, that's typically where it is.
Well, I just attended the EMS board of Pinellas County just last
I'm
night.
talking city
That's not the way they do
council,
it.
talking city council
This
meetings.
is emergency services, and this is the way others do it. Look, however you want, if it gets buried, I mean, it shouldn't matter whether it's me making it. Anybody who has an issue with the minutes, I think, deserves to be heard. I didn't even get a motion, so you got bad minutes. I mean, they're not killers, they're accurate. It was a 6-1 vote. You'll just never know who that person is if you're reading the minutes, so that's wrong. I don't think it should be buried.
So for the one time, we start pulling out all the minutes.
We should pull out all the minutes all the times, that's the point, okay? And you can fly through them. I mean, come on, do I have a motion to approve the June 6 minutes? Yes, second. Yeah, anybody have any comments? No. Anybody's citizens? No. Okay. Call the question. Done. Voice vote, yes. What did that take, 30 seconds if there's nothing? I mean, I don't think our time is that.
Raise the issue.
Okay, I mean, I'll go with the consensus. I just said that, you know, we'll call the voice vote, it'll get into the minutes, not a voice vote, I'll call it by roll. That I thought was an improvement, and I appreciated that suggestion. We've integrated, and I think it does make things move quicker. I'll go with the consensus of whatever the council thinks. I just think that we should have that opportunity to speak about the minutes. The rest of the stuff, National City Clerks Week, I'm totally fine with making that in the consensus. You know, that was fine, you know. It was City Clerks Month, it's like City Clerks Year, whatever. Anyway, where are we at? We're good with it?
I think it, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I made my point, if it's under consideration, if not.
I think to help speed up the meetings, that we ought to leave it in the consent agenda, but you can call for a voice vote. That way it will always be noted in the minutes. And then that thing that you were concerned about with not knowing who did that one, you will have that in the future.
Okay, it won't be a voice vote, it'll be a roll vote, which I think takes longer, but, okay, that's what we'll do. And if we start getting errors with the minutes, then, you know, we'll see. Usually they're excellent, but we do need to move minutes out if somebody has a concern. I'm very concerned about that. So, anyway, that's 2 people. I think last time we had unanimity, so that's 5-2 right now. So we're still leaving it out. Who wants it in the consent? Who wants it in consent agenda? 1, 2,
I didn't have a problem with the way that they were.
3, 4. Okay, so we've changed our minds. So we're going to leave them in the consent agenda, and we'll pull them out if there's a problem. I will call non-roll votes until we see that this problem is taken care of. Okay, everything will be a roll call vote. Sorry, it's a non-roll. It'll all be a roll vote. Okay, so we've been in that one. That is the best practice. Okay, Leslie. There you go. Second. Oh wait.
Are we trashing these because as he
You know what, he said that, I'm gonna tell you something,
Don't trash.
don't trash anything, public records law, if you put even so much as a doodle on that, it's a public record, so yeah, I wouldn't trash anything, but that's best practices too, keep all the stuff that they give you. Okay, second, everybody in favor? Aye? No against? Good night, everyone.